Welcome, I'm Seema from Edufinite. In this video, I'll be explaining how to transform compound sentences into complex sentences and complex sentences into compound sentences. I will help you to clear your concepts on the topic. Hope it is beneficial for you. If you have any queries, you can write to me in the comment section below. If you have any confusion about types of sentences and clauses, you can check my video on them. The links will be provided in the description box. One more thing, as the video was getting too long, I have made separate videos for transformation of simple sentences into compound sentences and vice versa, as well as simple sentences into complex sentences and vice versa. Now, let us delve into the topic. Well, transformation of sentences. The transformation of a sentence means changing its form without any change in its actual meaning or idea. So we can change the form of the sentence, but the idea or the meaning of the sentence should remain the same. Now, why do we transform sentences? We transform sentences because it helps us to learn the various ways of presenting a sentence while writing in English. Now, there are mainly three types of sentences, and they are simple sentence. It has just one independent clause. That means it will have just one subject and one verb. Next, we have compound sentence, where it has more than one independent clause joined together with a coordinating conjunction. Now, minimum it will have to have two independent clauses and they'll be joined together with a coordinating conjunction. Next, complex sentence. The third one is the complex sentence. Now, the complex sentence has one independent or main clause and one or more dependent or subordinate clauses which begin with a subordinate conjunction. Now, we can change a simple sentence into a compound or complex sentence by expanding a word or phrase into a clause. That means a word or phrase, we have to expand it to make it a clause. That means what we have to do, we have to include a verb in it, a subject and a verb. Then a phrase gets turned into a clause. Next, we can change a compound sentence or a complex sentence into a simple sentence by contracting a clause into a word or a phrase. So what we have to do, we have to eliminate the verb from it and contract it to turn it into a phrase. Then it will change from a compound or a complex sentence into a simple sentence. We can change a compound sentence into a complex sentence by changing one of the independent clause into a subordinate clause and vice versa. That means I have already explained over here that the compound sentence has minimum two independent clauses. So when we convert the compound sentence into a complex sentence, we'll have to change one of its independent clause into a subordinate clause. Now, and vice versa means when we have a complex sentence which will have at least one subordinate clause and one independent clause, then that subordinate clause has to be changed into an independent clause so that the sentence has minimum two independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction. Then only a complex sentence will be turned into a compound sentence. Let's look into some of the examples. In spite of them being a strong team, they lost the match. So this is a simple sentence. So here, they lost the match. They is the subject and lost is the main action verb. Next, to turn this into a compound sentence, we'll have to have two independent clauses. And so we have changed in spite of them being a strong team into they were a strong team. So here they is the subject, which is a pronoun, and were is the verb. So they were a strong team gives us a complete meaning. So it is an independent clause because an independent clause always gives us a complete meaning. And next, the other part, they lost the match, is also an independent clause because it has a subject, it has a verb, and it expresses a complete meaning. And these two independent clauses are joined together by the coordinating conjunction. Either it can be but or yet. So the sentence stands as, they were a strong team, but they lost the match. Or, they were a strong team, yet they lost the match. So this is how we are turning the simple sentence into a compound sentence. Now the next one is a complex sentence. So here we'll have to have one subordinate clause and one independent clause. So we'll change one of the independent clauses of the compound sentence and turn it into a subordinate clause. Let's see how. Though they were a strong team. So what did we do? We started this independent clause with the subordinating conjunction though and turned it into a subordinate clause. Why? Because if we just say this much, though they were a strong team, it does not express a complete idea. So what we have to do, we have to add an independent clause to it to get the complete meaning of the sentence. So then we attach, they lost the match. The independent clause, they lost the match. So hence, we get a complete sentence which gives us the full meaning, and this is a complex sentence. So the whole sentence stands as, though they were a strong team, they lost the match. Well, here we're going to learn how to transform a compound sentence into a complex sentence. How do we do that? We do that, as I told you earlier, by changing one of the independent clause into a subordinate clause by using a noun clause, an adjective clause, or an adverbial clause. Now, if you want to know elaborately about what is a noun clause or an adjective clause or an adverbial clause, you can check my video on clauses, function and uses. The link will be provided in the description box. But I'll just give you a brief idea over here. A noun clause is a clause which acts as a noun in that particular sentence, and an adjective clause is a clause that tells us more about the noun of that sentence. So it acts as an adjective. And an adverbial clause is a clause that acts as an adverb in that sentence. That means it tells us more about the verb of that sentence, like about the time, place or condition or the reason why that action took place, as the adverb does always in a sentence. Now, conversion of compound sentences into complex sentences. So a compound sentence with cumulative conjunction and. So first we'll focus into that. Now let's look into some of the examples. The con man saw the police and he ran away. So here, since this is a compound sentence, we have two independent clauses, and one of them is the con man saw the police. So this gives us the whole meaning by itself, and it has a subject and a verb. And the next part, he ran away, also expresses a complete meaning. It has subject he and ran as its verb, and these two independent clauses are joined together by the coordinating conjunction and. Now let me tell you, I have marked green all the subjects and the verbs are marked blue for your easier understanding. Now how do we change this compound sentence into a complex sentence? Well, we'll have to just, as I told you, we have to just change one of its independent clause into a subordinate clause. That means we'll have to attach a subordinating conjunction and see that its meaning is not expressed by itself. That is the criteria of a subordinating clause. So let's see how we do it. When the con man saw the police, so here we have changed the con man saw the police. We've just attached when, subordinating conjunction when to it, and this has changed into a subordinating clause. So when the con man saw the police, he ran away. So he ran away is an independent clause. So now we have a subordinate clause which is dependent on the independent clause. So this is a complex sentence. Now the next one. The task was completed by Julie and it was very tough. So you can see we have two independent clauses. Now to turn them into a complex sentence, we write the task which has been completed by Julie was very tough. Now note here, which has been completed by Julie is the subordinating clause. Now this has been inserted inside the independent clause. The task was very tough. So we can place a subordinate clause either in front of the independent clause or inside an independent clause or at the end of the independent clause. So these are the three places where we can place a subordinate clause. Now the next one. Rohan finished his work and he went home. So you can see two independent clauses have been joined together by the cumulative conjunction and. Now how do we change this? So we say after, we just attach after to it. After Rohan finished his work, this is the subordinate clause. I have underlined all the subordinate clause so that looking at the complex sentence, you can understand which part is the subordinate clause and which part is the independent clause. Then, he went home. So after Rohan finished his work, he went home. So this is a complex sentence. Next, let me walk fast and I will be able to reach in time. So again, this is a compound sentence. It has two independent clauses joined by the cumulative conjunction and we change it into a complex sentence by attaching. What we do over here is we change the subject from object form of the pronoun to the subject form of the pronoun. So me has been changed to I, and we attach a subordinating conjunction if. If I walk fast, I will be able to reach in time. We remove the coordinating conjunction and we write the independent clause. So this is how we are changing the compound sentence into a complex sentence by attaching a subordinating conjunction to it and removing the coordinating conjunction. So if we attach a subordinating conjunction to a independent clause, it changes into a subordinate clause, and then we remove the coordinating conjunction and we write the independent clause. So that's how we are changing the compound sentence into a complex sentence. Now the next type is when a compound sentence has adversative conjunctions like but, still, however, nevertheless, whereas, while, yet, etc. How do we change or how do we transform them into a complex sentence? Let's look into some of the examples. Now an adversative conjunction expresses opposition or contrast between two statements. So here the two independent clauses will show some contrast. So here the first sentence, she lost her purse but she was not upset. Usually when a person loses his or her purse is upset, but here she is not upset. So we use the adversative conjunction but over here. So how do we change this into a complex sentence? We use although as the subordinating conjunction and we place it in front of the independent clause she lost her purse and change it into a subordinate clause. So although she lost her purse does not give a complete idea of the sentence. Now when we attach the independent clause, she was not upset, we get the whole meaning. So this is how we transform the compound sentence into a complex sentence. The next one, he is slow but he is steady. So this over here what we say, we use though. Though he is slow, he is steady. He put in a lot of effort, still he could not do well. So how do we do that? Though he put in a lot of effort, he could not do well. So the next compound sentence is be active, otherwise you will become obese. Now how do we change this into a complex sentence? If you are not active, you will become obese. So we are including if over here and we are saying if you are not active, you will become obese. So this is how we are changing the compound sentences into complex sentences where there are contrasting statements. We use although, though or if, and that's how a subordinate clause is made. And then what we do? we remove the coordinating conjunction and attach the other independent clause to it and transform it into a complex sentence. Now the next type. Well, compound sentences with alternative conjunctions like or, otherwise, either, therefore, either, or, neither nor, etc. So what do they actually express? They express an alternating relationship between the two independent clauses. And how do we transform them? Well, let's look into some of the examples to understand it. So the first compound sentence is, I have not completed my work, therefore I will be late today. So since I have not completed my work, I'll be late today. So let's look how we change this into a complex sentence. To turn this into a complex sentence, we have attached since as the subordinating conjunction and turned the independent clause into a subordinate clause. And we have eliminated the alternative conjunction therefore and written the independent clause, and that's how it's a complex sentence. Since I have not completed my work, I will be late today. The next one, walk fast or you will be late. So here again, how do we change this? We use the subordinating conjunction if. If you do not walk fast, you will be late. So this is how we are changing the compound sentence into a complex sentence. The next one, let us hurry up, otherwise we won't be able to finish it. So this we write as if we do not hurry up, we won't be able to finish it. So what we have done, when we use if, we have to use the subject form of the pronoun or the subject pronoun. We cannot have the object pronoun over here. In the compound sentence, it was let us, it's the object pronoun. But when we turn it into a complex sentence and we use the subordinating conjunction if, we have to have it in the subject form, that is subject pronoun. Next, he must attend the class or he will be marked absent. So we change this by using the subordinating conjunction unless. Unless he attends the class, he will be marked absent. Ravi wants to become rich, therefore he works very hard. So how have we changed this? We have taken the independent clause, he works very hard, we've put that right in front, and instead of the pronoun, we have used Ravi as the subject. Ravi works very hard in order that he may become rich. So we have just reversed the place of the first independent clause and we've turned that into a subordinate clause and use it after the independent clause. Ravi works very hard. Now, the last type of compound sentence with elative conjunction like for, so, etc. Now, how do we convert it into a complex sentence? Let's look into some of the examples. He reached school late, so he missed his first lecture. Now, to turn it into complex, we use the subordinating conjunction as. As he reached school late, he missed his first lecture. As he reached his school late is a subordinate clause and he missed his first lecture is an independent clause. So this is a complex sentence. He must be fast asleep for he is not answering my phone calls. Now, since he is not answering my phone calls, he must be fast asleep. So we have taken the second independent clause and brought it right in front of the sentence and attached a subordinating conjunction since to it and turned it into a subordinating clause. Since he is not answering my phone calls, then we have the independent clause, he must be fast asleep. Now, we'll do the other way around. How to transform complex sentences into a compound sentence. By changing the subordinate clause, which can be a noun clause, an adjective clause, or an adverbial clause into an independent clause. Because we know a complex sentence will have a subordinate clause and an independent clause. But a compound sentence always has more than one independent clause. So the subordinate clause has to go it has to get transformed into an independent clause. Then only we'll be able to change a complex sentence into a compound sentence. So then what do we have to do? Join the independent clauses by using coordinating conjunctions. Now let's look into some of the conversion of complex sentences into compound sentences. How do we do that? The first type is we convert the complex sentence into compound sentence by using cumulative conjunction and. And let's look into some of the examples. The first complex sentence is, I'm sure that Sam is wrong. Over here, I'm sure is the independent clause. That Sam is wrong is the subordinate clause or the dependent clause. Now let's see how we change it into a compound sentence. Sam is wrong and I'm sure of this. We have just reversed the sentence. Here the complex sentence, that subordinate clause, that Sam is wrong. We have removed the subordinate conjunction that, and Sam is wrong gives us a complete meaning, so it's an independent clause. We begin the sentence with this independent clause, Sam is wrong, and then we write the cumulative conjunction and then the other independent clause, I am sure. I'm sure of what? Of this, that Sam is wrong. So we have to include the word of this and turn this into a compound sentence. Next, when Harry went to the market, he bought a new jeans. So when Harry went to the market is a subordinate clause which has to be changed into an independent clause. Now let's see how. Harry went to the market. So we remove the subordinate conjunction when. So it has changed into an independent clause. Harry went to the market. And then we have the cumulative conjunction and we do not write he bought a new jeans. We just omit that he because it's understood. If we are implying he over here because he is the subject which is hidden. We don't always go on repeating the subject sometimes in a compound sentence. So the sentence stands as Harry went to the market and bought a new jeans. Next, as he was late, he refused to enter the school. So as he was late is a subordinate clause and he refused to enter the school is an independent clause. Now we have to have two independent clauses to turn it into a compound sentence. So what we do? We remove the subordinate conjunction as. So we just write he was late and include the cumulative conjunction and. Then we also remove the subject he because it's not necessary over here. It's understood. Rather the subject is hidden. So we write it as he was late and refused to enter the school. The next one. If you complete your work, you will be rewarded. So if you complete your work as a subordinate clause and you will be rewarded as an independent clause. Now to turn it into a complex sentence, we remove the subordinate conjunction if and we write complete your work. Okay, complete your work and you will be rewarded. Well, the next set of conversion of complex sentence to compound sentence is by using adversative conjunctions like but, still, however, nevertheless, etc. Now the first complex sentences, although they lost the match, they did not break down. Now what do? We remove the subordinating conjunction although. Now this turns into an independent clause. They lost the match. Then we use the adversative conjunction however. They lost the match however and then they write the other independent clause. They did not break down. So the sentence stands as they lost the match however they did not break down. The next one. Though he is poor, he is honest. So we remove the subordinating conjunction though and it changes into an independent clause. He is poor and then we include the adversative conjunction but and then write down the other independent clause. So we have two independent clause. He is poor, he is honest and is joined by a conjunction. We can also call it a coordinating conjunction or specifically adversative conjunction. So he is poor but he is honest is a compound sentence. Now the next one. Though he worked hard, he has failed. So he worked hard, still he has failed. So still is the adversative conjunction which is joining the two independent clauses. And so this is a compound sentence. If you are not attentive, you will miss the idea. So if you are not attentive is the subordinate clause. Now we have to turn this into an independent clause. So what do we write? Be attentive. That means here the subject you is hidden. I'm not saying you be attentive. We never say that. We say be attentive. Otherwise you will miss the idea. Well, the next set of conversion is by using alternative conjunctions like or, otherwise, else, therefore, either or, neither nor, etc. So let's look into some of the examples. If you do not complete your work, you will not be rewarded. So if you do not complete your work, naturally this is a subordinate clause or the dependent clause, and it begins with the subordinating conjunction if. Now we have to transform this into an independent clause. So we remove the subordinating conjunction, and what do? If there is if in a complex sentence, it uses the subject form of the pronoun. That means you over here is the subject form, but when we turn it into a compound sentence, we use the object form. So we are changing it into your. Complete your work or you will not be rewarded. So we remove the negative part. If you do not, we remove that. Complete your work, that makes complete sense. So complete your work, that's an independent clause, or is the alternative conjunction, and the next part is you will not be rewarded. So that's the compound sentence. Next. Now note over here, if the complex sentence reads as, if you complete your work, you will be rewarded. That means it's a positive meaning. Here, the other one which we had done earlier, if you do not complete your work, you will not be rewarded. That gives us a negative feeling. But if it's written in an affirmative tone, that is, if you complete your work, you will be rewarded, then how do we change this into a compound sentence? So we write, complete your work and you will be rewarded. So when it's affirmative, we don't use a conjunction or. We use the cumulative conjunction and. So that is how we make it an affirmative sentence. Complete your work and you will be rewarded. But when we use or, which is the alternative conjunction, that means sentence gives us a negative impact. Now the next one. Unless one takes the risk, one cannot prosper in life. Now we change this into one has to take the risk, else one cannot prosper in life. So these are contrasting things. So we'll have to have the negative part written in it. So one has to take the risk, else one cannot prosper in life is the compound sentence. I'm so tired that I cannot run anymore. So let's see, how do we change that? I'm very tired, therefore I cannot run anymore. Well, now how do we transform the complex sentence to a compound sentence? This is the last phase by using elative conjunctions like for, so, etc. So let's look into some of the examples. You may keep this book since you found it quite useful is the complex sentence. Now, what do? We remove the subordinating conjunction since and turn that into an independent clause. You found it quite useful. So we bring that right in front of the sentence. We write, you found it quite useful. And then we use the elative conjunction so you may keep this book. So this is how we transform it into a compound sentence. Well, the next one. Peter was overcome with grief because he had lost his only son. So let's see, how do we change this? Peter was overcome with grief for he had lost his only son. So here we have two independent clauses joined by the elative conjunction for. So that's all for today. Thank you for being there with me. If you like the content, do give a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Do subscribe to my channel and press the notification bell icon for future updates. Bye. Take care. See you in the next episode.